All right, this Hangout on Air is live. Hi, everybody who's watching or listening, whatever. So we had a guest last month, Duo Security. We're supposed to have a guest this month, and they had to back out last minute. And I have to admit, I then started searching my patter, what's going to be my shtick this month, what the heck are we going to talk about, and it turns out there's a lot to talk about. There's plenty to talk about. And we are fortunate enough to have Victor Branchan in the Hangout. And that was one of the things I wanted to talk a little bit about. You made an announcement about MDM. Do you care to discuss that a little bit?
Yeah. So Jesse and I are getting ready we submitted a few conference talks over the last couple of months, and we got accepted. So we'll be making the rounds to talk about MDM from sort of like a vendor neutral perspective, like how the protocol actually works, and then what are some of the gotchas that we had, trying to implement MDM, and at the same time, we're trying to build an MDM service that is usable to Mac admins. So we're focusing explicitly on bootstrapping Macs from DEP with a solution like Monkey or something like that. And we're hoping to get that done by WWDC. It works right now. So I've tested it with a number of Macs where we can do the bootstrap process. So what we're working on right now is a command line tool that talks to the MDM server, so you could manage the profiles on the MDM server and manage the devices in DEP and get those things synced. So we're working on the user experience around how to manage the MDM server and making sure the DEP bootstrap process is robust until WWDC, and then we'll see, what Apple announces for 10.13 or whatever. Because I was playing with the OS update commands, and some things work really well. Like I can push an OS update command to a Mac, and if there is no user logged in, it'll immediately reboot and install that major OS update. But if the user is logged in, they don't even get a notification. There's nothing happens there. It just says it's installing, and it doesn't do anything. So we're going to open a radar about that. But there's lots of things like that which are not completely finished. Like you would think that they work just because they're in the spec. They're not 100% there. So we'll see what progress we make there.
All right. Yeah. So just to roll that back a little bit for anyone who's not familiar, this is micromdm.io is the website, right?
Yeah.
And you made a blog post on the website saying like, hey, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was sort of like, hey, we're putting a stake in the ground. We're going to ramp this up to be sort of a premier experience as an open source MDM.
Yes, that's correct. So with the focus on what people actually need right now for Mac management, which the understanding for me at least is that we all want to get the bootstrap from DEP to our own agents. And the reason the specific focus is that MDM in general is there's lots of things to do. There's user management, there's erase device and all that stuff, and sort of trying to focus on what people want first and building that user experience out. So eventually, we get asked a lot about iOS support and so on, but eventually those things are going to come. But being an open source project, we've got to pick something very specific and make it work really well.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think you're chasing down the right initial goal. Like that's very relevant to our interests. The purely bootstrapping and getting machines set up, and then from there,
Right. We want the initial imaging is dead solution.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
All right. So, are you looking for other contributors, or are you?
Other contributors are great. I am looking to write a little bit more documentation to invite people to actually try this. So the perfect thing for somebody who would want to try this right now, who has a DP account, would be to set up a virtual server where they allocate 1 or 2 Macs and go through a quick start process and report, what's not working right with our tool, and how what kind of issues are running into, because as we've discovered, and Eric Gomez, who's been working with another vendor to try to get the same thing working we found a lot of issues around when certain things can happen. So for example, until 10.12.4, you could not install an application until the setup assistant process was completed. So there's a wait device configured mode where you can install a user and you can install profiles and so on. When you were pushing an install application, that was being delayed. And Apple fixed that. So in the latest point release, you can install applications during that mode, which significantly speeds up this bootstrap process. So if you're only installing something like Monkey, which is a 3 meg install, that goes by really fast. So things like that, we're trying to figure out what's the best approach for like how we actually want to bootstrap things, and the failure modes around those. Testing that out and figuring out what's a good solution, what's a good workflow here is really helpful.
Yeah, I think we might be able to contribute to that cause. Yeah, I think we have a macro too that is enrolled in DEP that we should be able to.
I have at least one.
At least one.
Well, one thing that I think we should all press Apple on is making sure that DEP is not bypassable, which Brianne mentioned in the last meeting, because that defeats the whole purpose if we're going to use this as a security solution.
Sure, it's somewhat bypassable until some point in the future when you hit your device and then it reactivates, right?
It barks at you. It keeps barking at you.
Yeah.
But I think you still function.
I think we're coming at it from a different point of view. We're not worried. We're a large company, so we're not super worried about if a machine, walks. I mean, we are, but it's whatever. It's other people have a different solution. Right. So we're not. So we're more worried about just the end of imaging, and we need something to it would be nice to have the drop ship a machine from Apple. They open it up and then everything just happens, right? We don't have to, a tech never has to touch it. Everything just goes.
Right. Well,
so that would be nice. And not
in these meetings, and it comes up in MacAdmin Slack, different use cases.
Yeah,
totally.
Totally.
Not everyone's use case. But yeah, our use case pretty much is imaging's dead, bootstrap, go, and our management tools will basically do the rest. Just quickly, Victor, in Slack, does MicroMDM support VPP, or is it on the roadmap? Question mark.
It's on the roadmap. We have a library that knows in the road for integrating with VPP. So just like VPP is a web service that Apple provides, and you write a client to integrate with them. So we have that part. What's going to come before VPP is user management. So right now, we're only managing at a device level. So when a user authenticates to MicroMDM, we currently ignore that, and that's because a big part is figuring out, what do we actually want to do with users? Do we want to support something from LDAP, or is that dead? Do we want to, one thing, I've jokingly said in the past, but I actually end up doing is just picking back on Google Directory, because a lot of users already have that.
Yeah.
And saying, anything with user related, goes through there. But that's something that we'll focus after this summer, after the DP is all finished, and we're happy with it.
Excellent. That's good news. That's good news.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One question I had for you guys, since you were experimenting with this, is how are you dealing with DP with security for authenticating users? So we've had a lot of sort of discussions about how we can authenticate a user at the setup assistance screen, and there's been some interesting ideas of like a one-time token, or sending an SMS and having the user authenticate there. But unfortunately, there's only 2 fields, and it's just username and password, and that's all you can enter. And it does a HTTP basic auth to the server.
Yep.
So whatever you do after has to be something else. So that's something that users could pressure Apple into trying to figure out a better system there.
Yeah, so we've had a little bit more pressure to get iOS under an MDM solution, and we're still sort of experimenting with that a little bit. And yeah, that HTTP basic auth for us is not ideal. We don't have LDAP, which everyone sort of expects you to have. We've asked about other authentication methods, and there's almost no. I mean, it's really an Apple thing, right? They support HTTP basic auth. So the suggestion, it's not great, but it's not terrible. The suggestion is you let the device enroll unauthenticated. It goes into this sort of quarantine bucket, but then the MDM server can push down a setup app, and then first run through, people have to use this setup app, and that can, it's an app that can authenticate with anything, and talk to the server and get people set up. So less than ideal, but not terrible. So that's kind of where we're headed for now, until there's some change on that front.
Yeah, that's mostly iOS. I think on the Mac OS side, we're probably mostly not interested in user management.
Right.
Eventually, maybe, but like certainly out of the box, Google don't care too much for that. We don't. At least I don't see a point to it.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, they're sort of different platforms, different uses. We want to have a little bit more, like on the Mac, we get to run things arbitrarily. So we have all sorts of other controls and things we can look at.
For now.
And yeah, for now, there are certain things that, sort of like we talked about last month with Propine Duo Security. We determine how much we trust a device as it sort of comes through our gateway. And our security team is really big on, well, if we're going to trust iOS, we need this, and we need that, and we need this other thing. And like we're saying, Apple's never going to let you do that, right? Like,
good luck, have fun.
They want these things that the traditional platforms can offer them. They're like, hey, how can we monitor the network? Like, that's not happening on iOS. Forget it. And if that means it can never get as trusted as some other platforms, oh well. Like, that's, so we're looking for these other features on iOS, because if someone loses their Mac, we can kind of deal with that. On iOS right now, if someone loses their iOS device, we need a little bit better fleet management around iOS. And that's both cases, right? Like there's the DEP and MDM case, which is really sort of exciting and interesting and follows the traditional platform management pattern a little bit more closely. but mobile devices are really typically where people are going to bring in their own device, BYOD, and well, those aren't in DEP, and those don't have all the same affordances, and especially on iOS, which is kind of interesting how Apple differentiates those, right? So right now, the bulk of our iOS fleet is just bring your own device. Someone has used their google.com account on Gmail or whatever else, and it's still their device. So we don't have the visibility into those devices like we do with a supervised device. So it's interesting. Anyway, thanks again, Victor. Thanks for the update. I think that's really exciting. We will try to get one running here and point a Mac or two in its direction.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to have more. The reason I got the new website updated is because I wanted to have a blog section on there.
Yeah.
We're doing lots of testing of the different commands, and it's sometimes interesting to see, how far Apple has gotten in the past couple of years, but also what's still lacking. There's been a big progression, specifically with, for example, OS update commands. There's certain things you couldn't do in 10.11 that then you can do going forward complete and so on, and it gets better. But I think if we can make that more public, more people will understand what's going on and be able to talk back to their reps at Apple.
Yeah, and you know what? Sort of back to your point earlier, I think there are a number of things we need to ask from Apple, and one thing that's certainly lacking is profile support, better profiles. So again, if we're going to be using an MDM primarily to manage our devices, profiles certainly are lacking on Mac OS versus iOS, and there are a bunch of things that you can't quite do on.
There's a ton of
things. Someone
nearly endless list.
Was it who had a list? Someone started putting together a
Mosen.
Okay, I didn't remember who, but someone had a nice list of things like, hey, these things don't work via profile at all. So.
Oh, I mean, actually, no, that was Michael Lent.
No, I don't think it was.
Frogger compiled them all to say, like, hey,
did he?
Okay. Tweet at me all the things that you can't currently do.
There was a document. Anyway,
there was a separate one. I want to say maybe it was even Nate Wall.
Could be.
It was probably in the most secure, secret, double handshake room in Slack. Come on. Nobody's supposed to know about that.
Okay, so speaking of Apple doing things in point releases and adding functionality or destroying functionality, 10.12.4 shipped. I don't know who else had a miserable time with 10.12.4, but we certainly did. And judging by some of the comments in MacAdmin's Slack channel, other people had not such a great time. From getting kernel panics on reboot to their monitors not powering up at the pre-boot authentication screen, so people could just sort of type without seeing their password, and it would eventually get to the desktop.
Surprise!
It was sort of miserable. So
I think almost all of the issues we saw were installs via Monkey.
Yes, which is such a strange thing, because Monkey is just using the software update command under the hood.
Mm-hmm.
But when we have people download the package from Apple,
or
updater,
or go through the App Store,
it works just fine. So I don't know if that's a common thread or trend, but
we're pushing Sierra now 10.12.4 so that we can restrict docks and desk syncing at the same time.
I was going to get to that, but
because we didn't get it out the door before. So, hey, now's a good time, and it's been 100% successes of the people who actually do it.
That's people upgrading
directly to 10.12.4.
Yeah, a little different.
Like literally, we have double digits on 10.12. Period.
Nice.
No.
Oh, on 10.12. Oh, you mean
10.12x.
Okay.
Not good. But
Yeah.
it means that we therefore have cut to the chase.
So yeah, 10.12.4 sort of brought up a bunch of issues. We know StartOS install command changed a bit,
Yep.
which threw off a bunch of people. I don't know if that affects. I don't know.
Well, StartOS install got more features, I think, is the TLDR on that. It was
Yeah.
more that they also just moved around the processes that Kratos 10 install package was relying on.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember, but they got rid of the dash volume flag.
All of those things were only applicable when you were running from the booted volume as well.
Right.
With a logged in user session. There was a bunch of like, hey, when you have the perfect storm of you holding your left earlobe while you run it, things will go well with StartOS install.
Yeah, of course, but if you've scripted this, brace your script. So that's, hey, download the betas, test is I think the takeaway. And there was some other talk again on MacAdmin's Slack about it not working at all, but it wasn't working if people weren't logged in. I know Greg Nagel did a bunch of troubleshooting on that, and I think he has it working now.
He decided to just extract it from the package itself and put it into Monkey.
Okay.
So Monkey 3 now can handle what we have in 10.12 before even Monkey 3 ships. But that's kind of like saying, the bus is going to continue to be moving while he tries to change the wheels on it. But at least he's given himself the advantage of the rest of the Monkey tools as a library to try to attack some of the parts of it.
Yeah, that wound up not biting us because the only place that we StartOS install is in this assistant that helps people upgrade, and they're logged in while they're doing that. So I think we sort of lucked out with that, but
it was just a quick pull request that restored basic Kratos 10 install package functionality, but the writing's on the wall that how it operated this BR tool, I think it is going away.
Yes, that's right.
But that moved around, and we're kind of like, you know what? We can't really depend on this. If they move it, if they move paths, just because, maybe it's time to stop relying on that as how this entire thing is running as an engine in the background.
Right, yeah, I forgot about that. Victor says, what's interesting is that StartOS install was failing at login window, but the MDM version of that command only succeeds at the login window. Yeah.
Bizarro land.
That is interesting. And yeah, 10.12.4, as you mentioned, Alistair, brings us the ability to block iCloud desktop and documents from syncing.
Yep.
That they fortunately did in a profile, which is kind of nice. So
they did have to move stuff around to actually make that work. So
they did.
It shouldn't have taken 4-point releases, but
The iCloud desktop and document syncing is really interesting. I could see maybe a consumer using it, but I'm usually against having to block things. I kind of hate doing that. This is one of those, I think you want it off unless you really know what you're doing.
Yeah. It was sort of going back to the WWC last year where they announced all the 10.12 stuff, and I was like, these are all things that your security team wants you to disable. Like everything like, yep.
Yeah. I mean, this
set them up to knock them down.
I think this is even a little different because
the underlying stuff is interesting, but it's all the announcements they made were just like,
yeah. I mean, this also though I feel is a little different in the manner of like it starts managing your documents for you, and if it thinks you're low on space, it gets it up to the cloud and takes it off of your local machine. So I think it's again one of those things that you really want to opt into it yourself and know that it's on and know what you're doing, so you don't get on a flight or somewhere where maybe you don't have connectivity and say, "What do you mean that document's not on my disk?" or whatever, right?
We have
other problems with cloud syncing. So.
We have salespeople who they don't have 5 gigs of data. They're in a web app all day, and they don't need they're like, where's the last 3 things I saw on iTunes, and that's it. They really care. And those things are like rentals, and they go away. But this person didn't have any prompt. he upgraded to Sierra, and there's no prompt that it's turning that on. He had iCloud Drive on because iCloud Drive is the thing that synced his tweets. Like,
Yes, that's
he had no idea like that was going to therefore cause his documents and desktop to be synced up. But he also, it's not going to remove stuff from his disk because he barely uses his computer for those things.
Right.
It's like however, after the fact, for us to do them a solid is find all those people, tell them it's enabled because they don't know or realize, and then help them turn it off by backing them up just to be sure. Who knows what state it's syncing to Apple's always dependable cloud services? I mean, the status says it's green, so I mean, it must be up. But if it's mid-sync and we turn off that switch, what do you observe?
Yeah. I don't.
It's a lot of manual
I'm not saying
interaction.
I've tried every cloud syncing option out there, but like, it's hard to beat the reliability of Dropbox. Like, I have sync pretty nailed.
Google Drive, if you try to clone into Google Drive, GitHub Desktop barks at you. Like, don't do that.
Really?
Yeah.
Desktop. Because I've
Yeah.
used the command line client.
Of course.
Now, I
GitHub just like, you can't put that there.
I love Google Drive, but I've mostly stopped using the sync client. So
Yeah.
I just use it on the web. And it does a great
You
job.
you had a bad time like 4 years ago, and you've given up on it. It's actually
No, I haven't given up. It's just
No, you
know what,
stopped
there's
using
only
it back then, but
so
I
many things I want running on my machine. And syncing it. To be honest, I very rarely use Dropbox anymore either. But I do know that they have it down, right? They have the experience down. They've been doing it longer than just about anyone, I think, the way that they're doing it. So, yes, and the other thing that I had in my notes about 10.12.4 was this is where we saw a little change with trying to install third-party packages with the installer, with like auto package. Did you not run into this? I know this was fairly widely talked about, where if you built an installer with third-party packages,
auto damage.
auto damage. I'm sorry. Yes.
Oh,
Right.
if you built an installer.
And use third-party packages.
Oh.
Install the third-party packages. Even
This is Grados to install package bundling unsigned
yes.
package or packages
even
that
signed packages.
right packages that are not Apple's
Not Apple signed.
entitlement that allows it to go through the install process and therefore modify.
Yes.
That's kind of like one of those. Thanks for that blog post. We'll fix that bug and attribute it to you, even though you didn't file it with us.
Yeah. So
Is how that came about.
just another heads up to MacAdmins everywhere. And I think the last thing I wanted to talk about a little bit, again, 10.12.4, is this is another place where we saw in a point release sort of tightening the restrictions around SIP. And people saw some things like, hey, I can't unload this daemon anymore.
Or almost anything at this point.
Yeah, so that list of things being exempted from SIP keeps shrinking and shrinking, which I guess makes sense. And the what's it called? I was looking at it a little earlier. The
Rootless or
yeah, the rootless P list, just things keep disappearing from there.
Yeah.
So again, I think the lesson really is get those seeds early and test. That's the rule. Did that sum up the last month in Apple land? Oh, new Mac Pro is being announced.
Yeah. Totally weird.
I've seen enough commentary. I don't think anyone needs my commentary. I mean, it's exciting, but I don't think it signifies a new open Apple. I think their hand was forced and they had to say something. I don't think we're going to start seeing Apple announce products a year in advance. You know, like
What was it about 3 years versus 2 years though? Like that doesn't make sense.
You know,
Like did they go out of warranty and therefore they're like, maybe we should actually eventually get around to talking about what we're going to do about that. Like,
I I don't think it was on their radar. I think they missed it a little bit. And think about all the people that use Apple products because you, a technologically savvy person, turned them onto it, right? And I think Apple did see, I think Apple's in the position they are today because technology savvy people were really into it and they turned everyone else onto it, and creative professionals were using it and they were cool and they turned people onto it. That's what helped make the Apple brand and help them survive. And I think if Apple started seeing their professional users saying, we're going to Windows or we're building a Hackintosh or whatever because the power isn't here to do what I want, like, all right, maybe that's not a problem for the next year or 2 or 3. But as those people who are influential in normal people's lives, and they say, well, oh, you switched to a Windows machine? Oh, maybe I should try a Windows machine. Like there's this, ripple effect, I think, and Apple had to say something. So, but I'm excited. I think overall, I'm excited that they're saying, hey, we're going to invest in this again, build something really cool, because the trash can was cool. It was nice.
Yeah,
They
clearly kind of decided on, the world is going to go towards multiple GPUs, and it turns out the world did not go that way.
Sure. I think the problem, of course, though, is like nothing on it's replaceable. If the trash can was slightly bigger and they said, hey, we're shipping it with these 2 slots with these 2 great GPUs, but as GPUs improve, you're going to be able to swap them out. That would have been fantastic, right? But it's so. Yeah,
they didn't.
Well, it was a bet on Thunderbolt 2 as much as it was a bet on mini DisplayPort.
You're right.
And how well did we learn our lesson from FireWire? It's like FireWire was niche. Mini DisplayPort is niche. Like it's not going to change people's perceptions of your expandability when it's got to be external over a mini DisplayPort.
Yeah, you're right. I think they expected a lot of external enclosures that could handle the bandwidth over a Thunderbolt.
And it all just stayed niche. Whereas now with USB-C, at least they're getting some, cross-pollination going on.
A little bit.
They shouldn't be worried about it for accessories. They shouldn't be worried about it for people driving their workflow with stuff.
It'll cross-pollinate a little bit more once we see USB-C on the phone.
Could.
If we ever
is this waterproof? I mean, it's just made their life easier to make a proprietary thing that they could license and certify.
Well, I get it, but it's a little frustrating. Okay. Questions? Talking points? Announcements? Mac DevOps, I think that's the next big thing coming up.
I'll be there.
I'll be there. You'll be there. And I was traveling to Vancouver the first week in June.
Same week as WWDC.
Same week as WWDC, and Matt announced first, so
Apple. I gotta get it. Yeah,
he wins. I have to.
It's always been a great conference.
This year, this will be my first time, so I'm excited. I've been meaning to get to it. The first year, yes, I went to WWDC, or I at least went to San Francisco to be around the buzz of WWDC. And it was too close to that. And then last year, it was like a week off of Penn State.
Right.
And I was already committed to going to Penn State. So this year, Penn State overlaps my daughter's birthday. So I will be opting out of Penn State, but going to Mac DevOps. So I'm excited about that. I think that's the next big thing. So keep that on your calendar. Next month, hopefully, we'll have our guest back. And that's it.
Cool. I'll be sending folks from my office, hopefully.
To Mac DevOps.
Here.
Good.
I've got the Toronto guy going to Vancouver. I've got folks from New York that I'm hoping to bring out, but also my Austinites coming to Penn State to finally witness what the slowest Chipotle in the world is like. State College.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
See ya.